Mythos Busters, investigating the mystery, monsters, and madness of Arkham Horror, the card game.
Hello and welcome to episode 65 of Mythos Busters. Bless me, Father, for I have sinned. It has been 1 week since my last GenCon. I'm Sean. Joining me tonight are my GenCon buddies. So first we've got, let's go with Nick. Hi, Nick.
Hello.
Have you cleared your throat of all the cheese dust?
I have. It has helped that I'm drinking soda out of my Wild Bill's $60 mug that I got from GenCon.
I would
Still
expect no
paying for
less.
itself. Yeah.
Given that thing like never left your hand for the con.
I couldn't afford to.
Exactly. Joining us as well is your mug club brother-in-arms, Ian.
Hello.
Ian, is your mug also in hand?
No, it is not, because I left mine in the hotel.
Did you?
That's
Yes.
right.
No, we totally grabbed it for you. You'll get it at
okay.
Arkham Knights.
So
Sorry,
it's
I
not in hand.
Right. Joining us as well, of course, is Scott. Hey, Scott. You're not part of the Gen Con crew, but I'm still glad you're here.
Well, thanks. I'm a Gen Can't. Although my significant other was there.
Yes.
My wife joined
Absolutely.
you.
So
couple games.
representing House Armstrong.
Yes. She flew our banners high, I hear.
Sure did. And joining us as well, a very special guest, is Justin. Hi, Justin. You might know Justin, perhaps we've mentioned him as our administratomancer, but he's also just a dear friend, so happy to have you with us.
Thank you. And I am also the temporary holder of Ian's mug.
That's right.
Oh, good to know.
That's honestly one of the safer places it could be, given all the circumstances. So, we have got a fun episode for you guys tonight. It's our post-Gen Con episode. We're going to kind of just kick back and be a little self-indulgent and just share some stories and some feelings about Gen Con in general. Of course, with the focus on Arkham Horror, the card game. But there's some other really fun stuff that happened too, so we're going to kind of dive into that. But before we get to the straight-up discussion topic, let's run through our normal agenda. So, I'm going to skip the check-in, because, our discussion's a check-in.
Yeah.
So, also we will skip updating the Orbits contests. Our pre-Gen Con and post-Gen Con episodes, we're just kind of accepting from that whole line. So we will re-up on the last Orbits contest on next episode. Ian, any patron news?
Jeez.
Cheese dust.
It's floating around now. Yes, so first off, thanks as always to our 13 board members, Chris B, Chris H, Chris U, which we have recently dubbed the conglomeration of Chris's, Cyclos, Alex, Ian, Kyle, Philip, Dave, Abilio, Nathan, Chad, and Robert. Thanks so much for your support. And a special shout out to a random patron this time around is to Daniel Cater. And
Hi, Daniel.
yeah, thank you,
That was a
Daniel, for your
shout-out.
support. Yeah. And the kind of big patron business we'll be talking about in our actual Gen Con discussion, namely the swag that we revealed. So we'll save that for then, and I think that's about it for patron business this time around. There's more to come soon.
Excellent. So for community highlights this week, I just had a real quick one. It's oddly enough, I'm on Reddit well, not oddly enough. I'm just on Reddit all the time. It's my preferred social media nowadays. And what's oddly enough is that I've never actually mentioned the Arkham Horror LCG subreddit on this podcast, I don't think. Like we've thrown like offhand comments like, "Oh yeah, this was said on the subreddit," or whatever. But if you haven't checked it out, I think it's a good place to start. I haven't been on BGG in a while, but Reddit's mostly the reason why. So if you haven't checked out the Arkham Horror LCG subreddit, definitely would recommend doing that. It's almost at 10,000 subs, which for an LCG, subreddit is not nothing. So yeah, go help them top it off if you haven't checked it out already. Okay, So, blasting on through here. Ian, what news have we?
Well, the big piece of news we got is the announcement of the first Mythos pack in the Dream Eater cycle, which is called The Search for Kadath. And as far as the scenario itself, it's basically promising that this is kind of going to be an epic journey. So sometimes we get these scenarios that are very, like, zoomed in on one, like a house or a city, but this seems like it's going to be a big spanning scenario where we're going to go from one location to another, and each location is going to represent like a big kingdom or a big land or something. So curious to see how that's going to work out. But the part that people are probably really tuning in is to hear us discuss the new player cards that were revealed, and I can safely say each of these is kind of a doozy. So let's start off with the purple card in the pack with Sean.
Oh, me?
Mm-hmm.
Scroll of Prophecies is a level 0 mystic asset. It is 3 cost. It has a willpower icon, item, and tome traits. Uses 4 secrets. Action, spend 1 secret. Choose an investigator at your location. That investigator draws 3 cards, then discards 1 card from their hand. And it takes up a hand slot. Oh, God, isn't this what Scroll of Secrets should have been?
Wanted to be. Yeah,
Wanted to
3
be.
cards.
Like, that's some solid deck filtering. And,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that it goes everywhere, because a hand slot is something to give up. It's
But
probably
Daisy.
But Daisy.
Yeah.
And also, but Mystics, who, if anyone's not going to have things in their hands, it's probably Mystics. So, I think it all works out. This seems like a really good card.
Does this replace Old Book of Lore in Daisy?
No, not with 4 secrets.
No.
Right. Okay.
Because it has limited uses, yeah.
Sure.
I think it's better filtering than Old Book of Lore.
Mm-hmm.
But it's limited by the amount of uses. Because the fact that you draw those 3 cards, then discard, this other card that you can't play.
Right.
It's, so good.
It's going to be really fun, though, when one or more of those cards is a weakness, and then you still have to discard one of the other ones from your hand. That's going to happen a lot, guys. I feel it important to point that out.
Yeah.
What if you've got amnesia as a weakness? And you draw amnesia, you discard all but 1, and then you have to discard a card. God.
If you have that in your deck and the investigator comes at you with Scroll of Prophecies, you're just like, no, I don't want it. But I like, compared to Old Book of Lore, that this is kind of I wanted to say burst, but it's not that much of a difference, I guess. It's netting 2 versus 1, but still, that's significant in a game, and I'm kind of like thinking about pairing like a Daisy with an investigator who likes to discard cards for an ability, like a Windy or any of those survivors.
Any survivor,
yeah, Ashcan, any of those people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. It ticks all the boxes for me. It's good card draw. Like I said, it's going to bite you for once in a while, but the fact that you can use this on anyone, level 0, yeah, this is going to find its way into decks.
Absolutely.
Yeah. The next card, this one is probably the most interesting to me, I think, of the 3, and this is blue card, so Nick is up.
Perfect. First Watch is a Guardian event. It costs 1 resource, it's level 0, has an intellect and agility skill icons. It is tactic traded, and its game text reads, fast. Play when the draw encounter cards step of the Mythos phase would begin. Instead of resolving that step, look at the top X cards of the encounter deck, where X is the number of investigators. Deal those cards among the investigators as you wish, dealing no more than 1 card to each investigator other than yourself. Then, one at a time, each investigator draws the card or cards dealt to them. I love this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, it's obviously, like, you probably don't run it in 2-player. But 3 or 4, like, I love what this does thematically, like how it's encompassing that whole idea of keeping watch. And I also love, like, theoretically going, I'll take everything, or looking at stuff and being like, oh, this is a willpower test I can't handle, so let's give that to you. I love everything about this.
Yeah, I think in 4-player, this is like, I don't want to say auto-include, but it's
pretty close.
Strong pick, yeah.
It's really good. This is going to be going into my like multiplayer support Diana deck for TFA probably.
I was just going to ask if you're going to include it for Iron Man. Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you guys remember, those of you who were there for the first Arkham Nights that the LCG was at. I was playing Agnes, surprise, surprise, and it was a core set only environment, so I happened to have scrying in, and it was like the one time I felt scrying was actually doing work. We were playing 3-player, and I was scrying the encounter deck and, arranging things. And this is just such a neater way to do it. Like, one cost fast, just get it done.
So many times in multiplayer, it's like you have that feeling of everything just hits in the wrong order. Like, if I would have gotten that, I would have been fine. And so just being able to arrange all that for your benefit is great.
Mm-hmm. Just taking the hidden information out of the encounter deck takes so much bite out of it.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. Cool card.
And it kind of does a little bit of a job of like a taunt in a way. Like, say you're running Nick's like flamethrower build, and 3 enemies coming up, just plop them in front of me, and
Oh, that'd be amazing! I wish I had this for Blob.
Yeah,
like this totally goes in your block party Zoe deck.
Yeah, totally.
And am I interpreting the rules correctly here, where you could just take all 4 cards if you wanted to?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Cool.
You can just deal a max of 1 to each other player, but you could take all 4 if you want.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I have had the experience of like having Diana at like 8 willpower, and like I would gladly just take all the willpower treacheries in that case.
Or even if you're sitting on 1 or 2 cancels in your hand as Diana, why not give yourself 3 cards, cancel 2 of them, and then you're at +2 will for the 3rd one. Like, that's,
Guys are speaking my language so hard here.
Okay, so the 3rd and final card is red, so that means it's Scott time.
Yes. All right. We have a unique ally, Jessica Hyde. Wrong place, wrong time. She is 3 cost, level 1, and has 1 combat icon. She's ally, wayfarer, and cursed traded, and she has you get +1 combat. Jessica Hyde enters play with 2 damage on her, and then reaction, after your turn ends, heal 1 damage from Jessica Hyde, and she has 3 health and 1 willpower. And she takes up the ally slot, because, allies.
So who's going to say it first?
She's like Peter Sylvester.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
Just got the
kind
obvious
of
out of the
comes
way.
in
It's fine.
hurt.
She's like, I think the perfect static combat buff in Survivor class. Like, she is themed for that so well, starting with 2 damage and then slowly recovering. Like, I love that.
I think if you get her out and Peter Sylvester out with charisma in what's his name,
Calvin.
like the amount that you can like ride that line at 5
Never
damage,
die.
5 horror.
Never die.
Damn direct horror damage.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I love that, and the stat boost too, and you get that from Peter Sylvester. Like, oh man, there's a Calvin deck that's coming up. It's gonna be good.
Man, Calvin with 5 of Pentacles and the right, I agree. There's going to be a Calvin build that's like
Has like
good.
12 sanity and 12 health.
Yeah. Well, with what's her name now, Alyssa Kasparov or whatever, you can have 2 5 of Pentacles out.
Yup.
Anna Kaslow.
Anna Kaslow, that's the one.
Jesus. I mean, we're
was a
kind of on
valiant
the same
attempt.
block, I guess.
Yeah,
Wrong
this
neighborhood,
AK.
this could potentially be interesting with like, since it's just a damage soak, you could use it. What's the one that you can take damage to heal horror? Is it always mix up the 2 painkillers?
Smoking
Smoking pipe.
Smoking pipe. Whatever one it is, you could like ride that hard and just damage to keep healing horror off someone if you're an investigator who needs that.
So harkening back to that, like it's like the counterpart to the junky Peter Sylvester build.
Mm-hmm.
painkillers.
Yeah. This is probably the more balanced version of Peter Sylvester, I guess.
Yeah.
The less
I would
OP
agree.
version, I think.
I really like how it turned out. Like, it's less of an XP sink. It's a little bit more reasonable as far as like how quickly you can like turn up the heat on it, and it's only one static boost. Yeah,
Yeah.
solid.
Cool. So that is it. I'm looking forward to this pack already because for these 3 cards, give a lot to go off of. Yeah, and that's about it for the news, other than stuff at GenCon.
Well, all right, let's talk about GenCon then, shall we?
Okay. Yes.
No, wait. I had one thing from community.
Go on.
So I saw this on the Facebook page, which I don't really frequent, but I pop in there sometimes. And I totally forget the guy's name, but this is a very unique story. He actually made custom cards to propose to his girlfriend mid Arkham game, which I think, how could you be more romantic than that? And so basically the way it worked is he made 3 custom cards, and the way that he said that he made a fake agenda, and when it flipped, he's like the non-lead investigator or non-lead investigator has to draw these cards in order. And so the first one is will, and it's a will test 4. If you fail, take a horror. And then the next one is just a U, and it's test 4 intellect. If you fail, put this card in your threat area while there's another investigator at your location. Take 1 direct horror while they take 1 or more horror. And then there's marry me, which is a permanent, somehow as a treachery, but test 4 agility. This is your last chance to run. And then it said you share your resources, horror, damage, love, and joy, good times and bad times with David, to have and to hold for the rest of your life, till death you part, and it's victory 2. Aww. I had to throw this out there because I was like, that's
So
awesome.
wholesome.
Yeah, that was really good. So the cards say, "Will you marry me?" Yep.
And then she canceled them all as Diana. Oh, I'm proud of that one.
No, just the marry me. She's like, ward of protection.
Then she plays I'm Out of Here. And he's like, that's not legal.
I'll see you in hell.
Oh my god. Anyways, she said yes. But yeah, so I thought I'd bring that up just because I think it's a really cool story. So
Yeah, that's
good
really
job.
cool.
Good job, David. Well done.
And
Okay.
and good
Gen
luck
Con
in your
now, I guess.
nuptials.
Yeah.
So GenCon. I never know exactly how to start these discussions out. I suppose it probably bears mentioning that Nick, Justin, and I all road tripped in again this year, so we had a fun old time on the car ride down. There's always so much energy on the way to in the car.
Well, for like the first few hours, yeah.
Right.
Around like hour 5 is when everybody gets quiet.
It was nice to actually be there for the tapping party this year, though. I think leaving early was a good call, despite how friggin' painful it was that morning. But yeah, so I guess not a whole lot happened on our way in. Ian, you flew.
I flew. I did. That was actually met up with a friend of the show, Casey, at the airport over in my neck of the woods. And yeah, flight was fine. A little bumpy, but you know.
Excellent. And then Maura flew in, I think, that night, right, Scott? We'll get to her in a minute, but
Yes.
all right. So anyway, we got in. We headed out to the beer garden. The beer this year I thought was okay. What'd you guys think of what was it called again?
Brewtron 9000.
Brewtron 9000, and it was a tart golden ale. Am I remembering that correctly?
Correct.
What'd you guys think?
I thought it was fine.
Yeah, that's about where I was at.
Yeah, it wasn't. It wasn't the best. It wasn't the worst.
Like
I would drink
ordered
it
more
again
than
during the
once.
summer. I also
Right.
didn't realize that they were apparently leaning heavily into it being anime inspired and based on traditional Japanese beer. I found this all out after the fact, and all I could think of is, I don't know, it tastes like beer with lemonade in it.
Yeah, it kind of did. It was like a beer aid. But yeah, it was all right. It was all right. So I don't know though. Wednesday for me, oddly enough, one of the highlights is becoming the will call line. Can you
Well,
guys?
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Even though he almost got in a
Strangely.
fight this year.
oh man, I know that nerd. If he had pushed me one more time. But yeah, so we hopped into the will call line, and as is our custom, we broke out catchphrase, which, I mean, I'm pretty sure everyone around us, except for the one dude was into it, and he ended up playing with us a little bit, but everyone around us kind of hated us, right?
I think it was just the one. I think it was literally just the one guy that didn't like us. Everyone else just seemed.
Tolerated.
Yeah.
I mean, there were some chuckles. There were for
Yeah,
some of our
exactly.
good ones.
Right? Like
Yeah.
pre-pickle
Oh,
and sweet muffin.
what? Sweet muffin was cupcake, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a good
And
one.
pre-pickle was cucumber. And fancy snake
Fancy snake.
was king cobra.
It's a fancy snake.
It's not just a regular snake, guys.
And don't
No, it
forget,
was great. It's
Don't
great
forget
fun.
cold bird.
Cold bird, that's right. And then we had like baseball hints, like four
Like-
turns in a row.
50 million baseball
Yeah.
ones. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, part of the problem is the will call line's gotten so ridiculous with Gen Con now that even going as late as we did, it was, what, a 2-hour line?
No, it was a little over
Close
an
to
hour.
it? No.
I mean, last year
why
was
you
like a
gotta cut me
half
down?
hour, but
Yeah, last year it moved real fast. I don't know what the deal was. But anyway, good times were had. And then we headed out to the Yard House, and I got my annual allotment of vampire tacos.
Always one of the highlights of Gen Con.
And was, to my chagrin, told or informed that my theory as to why vampire tacos are called vampire tacos is incorrect.
so what? So why did you think they were called vampire tacos?
No, I don't want to say it now
Well, you have
because
to.
it's wrong.
Scott doesn't know.
Yeah, I don't know what they.
Okay, so
I don't even know what a vampire taco is. So
So vampire taco, it's got multiple things to it, but I thought the distinctive feature was that it's fried. The tortilla is got a layer of fried cheese on the outside of it,
okay,
That's right.
and then they wrap it up and put it in like the little taco holders that you have in a nicer restaurant.
as you do. Yeah.
And the way they present it is it's like it's upright, right? Like it's facing you like a coffin. So my thought was that they were called vampire tacos because when you curl this tortilla up and it's got like the frillies from all of the fried cheese on the bottom, it kind of looks like the collar, like a Count Dracula, like blah. But
And
sadly,
why
that's
is it called a vampire taco?
It's got a lot of
Because
fucking garlic in it.
I was gonna say, my guess would be it's garlicky.
God, that broke
Wow.
my heart to tell that story.
The waiter's just like, no, it's just the garlic. Oh my god, that was so good.
I am disappointed, Sean. I am disappointed.
Are you though? It seems pretty on brand to me.
Well, you know what's funny is like as you were saying this, I'm like I should try and guess, and I was just gonna say, what is it really garlicky?
It has so much garlic on it. It's delicious, but
Yes.
it has so much garlic.
I love garlic.
Yeah.
It would
same.
definitely kill a vampire. So, yeah. So bittersweet times with the vampire tacos this year, but they were very tasty as always.
Use them to mop up your tears.
Yeah, pretty much. So I think the thing that really bears some discussion, though, is FFG put on their in-flight report Wednesday night instead of... Did they do this last year was the first
Yes,
time?
last year was the
Yeah.
first time they did it.
So the in-flight report, their big press conference... Would we call it a press conference? I don't know.
Sure. Yeah.
Might be using that term lightly. But their presentation that they put on at Gen Con has traditionally been on Friday. So there's always like some weirdness when they're debuting a new thing that they announce at the in-flight report, because they've already had their booth open for a day and a half. And then they announce this new thing, and then now everyone who already stood in line on Thursday for whatever else has to debate whether they go in. So they're done with that. Their in-flight report is Wednesday night. A fair few things came out of it. some new houses for Keyforge that I'm pretty excited about because, they're basically like dinosaur centurions coming into that game, which just speaks to me on many levels.
Nick's ears peaked up.
I did get excited. The funny thing is we had not this long, but we had this discussion on the way to GenCon about why I don't like Keyforge. I just don't. And then they announced that, and I see the image of like a Triceratops wearing like Roman senator garb. I'm like, fuck, now I have to buy it. Like, there's no way around it now. I have to.
Yep.
One of us. One of us.
Yes.
Just for this set.
So excited about that, but I think probably the biggest thing of note that would probably be of interest to listeners of Mythos Busters is that there's going to be a new LCG on the block.
Yep, a cooperative LCG.
Tell us about it, Ian.
Oh, sure. It is Marvel Champions LCG, Marvel-based cooperative LCG. Yeah, I don't know how many people saw this coming because FFG has not had the Marvel license before. They had, other big licenses, notably Star Wars, but getting Marvel now is like they are going to be raking in even more money than they were before.
So I didn't get a chance to play it, Ian. Did you? I know a couple people demoed it while we were there. Were you one of them?
I did not demo it, but I have watched, I've seen all the Team Covenant basically spoiled everything, like every single player card, because they got a hang of it, and they did some gameplay videos, so you can pretty much watch that and learn how to play. But yeah, so I'm pretty familiar with it.
Sure. So two of the best selling points for me, and I have a feeling that you all are going to agree with this. The first off is that it is a single core set purchase.
Yes.
So you buy one core box, and you do not have to double up. You don't have to triple up in the case of like L5R or whatever.
Yep.
Finally. And then the next thing is that each pack, like the little packs, not the deluxes, I don't know how those are going to work yet, but the packs are individual decks. Like it's a hero. Like you buy the hero, and it's a deck for that hero. So you can totally skip packs and feel better about it than, like Arkham you straight up can't. You know what I mean? So, it's like, oh my god, that's so cool, in my opinion. Like, they're finally making the LCG release model work for the game that they're making.
Yeah, I think it's definitely, from everything that has been shown so far, the most accessible of the cooperative LCGs. Like, if I had to rate them on the scale, Lord of the Rings would probably be the least accessible. It is what it is.
Yeah.
Arkham is pretty accessible, but this is probably the most, just in terms of the simplicity of the rules and the terms, but also what you're saying, Nick, that, because I think one of the biggest hurdles is just the reality that we all love deck building, but there's lots of people who don't, but they still might be interested in this kind of game. And with this, you can just buy, I want to buy this hero pack, and it is a pre-built deck. Like, you can break apart those cards and build a different deck, but if you want, the deck is just there. You don't have to build a deck, just take that hero and play against scenarios, and you're good to go. So I think that's gonna give it some life for people who are kind of more skeptical of deck building.
I feel like I want to be that old man in the corner with my cane. Like, back in my day, I had to buy 3 core sets in every pack.
Back in my day, we bought boosters. We didn't know what we were getting.
Yeah. Do you guys remember the first Game of Thrones LCG model? Where it was 3 of all the common cards and 1 of the rares. So you actually had to buy 3 packs. But then you had 9 copies of 10 cards.
Barf.
Oh god. Yeah, it was terrible.
I mean, Arkham's kind of like that because I have more knives than I'll ever know what to do with. But it's much less so. So yeah.
I mean, you have that when you buy 1 core set.
That's true. You're right. I mean, if you just have the core set, you need to get to 30 cards somehow.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the big things people, because whenever a new LCG in a certain field like cooperative gets announced, the inevitable question is how does it impact Arkham? And I think my answer to that is it doesn't really, because although you can see Lord of the Rings and Arkham and just its own stuff, new stuff in Marvel, Like I feel like it draws a bit more from Lord of the Rings. Actually, there's not a ton of Arkham in this game,
Right.
and so I don't think it's a thing of like it's definitely not a replacement. It's very different. For me, Arkham is still top from just like comparing the two from what I know.
Well, and
But-
like the selling point, like not the selling point, but like the whole basis behind the game is so different from Arkham. Like Arkham's
is,
thing is
yeah.
like it's a narrative that your deck is evolving from
Yep.
one scenario to the next. And this is totally not like that. This is straight up.
Hulk smash.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Which I think they've done a good job looking at the cooperative LCGs of like making sure the mechanics are kind of fleshing out the theme of the game, because that's what the Arkham Files is all about, and Arkham LCG does that. And Marvel, like you want kind of fast paced back and forth, comic book action, slamming each other back and forth, and that's what like I feel like Marvel is shorter than Arkham. It's just more of a like this punchy kind of fast, just get your cards out type play compared to one of the things I do like about Marvel is kind of its resource system, because you discard cards from hand that have a certain amount of resources to pay for other cards in hand, and then you draw back up at the end of your turn. So it's key 4G, just in the sense of you're constantly dumping your hand each turn and then refilling back up. So it just means sometimes in Lord of the Rings, if you don't have a good resource or draw engine, you just get choked. Like you don't
Yeah.
get
you do.
resources you need, you don't get draw, and if you don't include certain cards, you're just stuck. And I don't see that happening in Marvel, because you're just constantly cycling through your deck. You're gonna see all of your cards at some point.
It is something about Lord of the Rings that feels like a bummer sometimes, when the base framework of the game feels like it's starving you by default. Like maybe that's a problem.
Yeah.
But yeah, really excited
very-
for this. This reminds me, at least from what we know, this seems a lot like what I wanted Sentinels of the Multiverse to be like.
Yeah.
I love Sentinels. It's a good game. I'll still play it, but it's got a heavy mental tax with all the sweeping board effects and math you have to do. Who likes math? So, yeah, I'm really excited to sink my teeth into this thing. A little sad that no X-Men are on the roster yet, because X-Men are kind of my thing. I want my Storm card. I want my Cyclops, but maybe we'll get there.
Yeah.
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 I'm sure a
Hopefully.
deluxe box down the road. If they're doing heroes and deluxes, I'm sure we'd just see an X-Men cycle. You know what I mean?
Yeah, here's hoping.
Oh yeah.
Oh God, I would buy that X-Men box so fast.
Disney, like the only reason why they're probably not in the core game is because the whole licensing thing probably wasn't squared away yet between Disney and Fox. And now that it is,
Sure.
Disney's even said that we
yeah.
won't be seeing mutants in the MCU for at least another few years.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, hopefully it'll be a little sooner for the game, because it's like quicker to come up with cards than it is to produce a movie. But
Right.
but yeah, I'm definitely all in for Marvel. I'll be collecting and playing it all for sure.
I'll be interested to see if this one plays well remotely.
Oh yeah.
Because I would argue Lord of the Rings is messy that way.
Sure.
Arkham I think
does
is fine.
quite well.
I think
I
Arkham's
think
fine.
I think this will probably remote better than Arkham will, even simply because you don't have to, like, the board state is like your hero and the villain, and you probably don't even need to have like the other heroes up. Like if Sean and I are playing via Discord, like I don't need to have Sean's board state up. You know what I mean? I could
Yeah,
just be
probably
like,
just be reminded like what's your health at every once in a while.
yeah, it would probably just look like a solo game. You know what I mean, on the table. But
Yeah.
I'm very excited to test the theory.
yes.
And also because you're not building a big board of allies like Lord of the Rings. Like they have this thing, like each time an ally does something, it deals damage to itself. So it's like the allies are getting churned through quickly, so you don't have to worry about keeping track of a big army.
Excellent. Yeah, so I'm trying to think what else was announced at the in-flight report that's kind of note.
there were 2 new Arkham
Oh yeah.
things.
Do that.
So, well, I mean, there was Arkham Dead of Night, which is the Arkham 3rd Edition expansion.
Which I got.
You
Yes,
did.
Diana.
Okay, have you cracked that open? Have you, like, played with the components at all? What's the premise behind that?
I've cracked it open and looked at the player cards. I haven't done much with the encounter stuff, which I assume is kind of the meat of what's new. I just looked at the
Sure.
new investigators and whatnot.
So does it come with a new scenario then? A new ancient one? Or great old one? Who's that?
Yep.
Or is that a spoiler?
God, I'd have to go grab it. It was one that I didn't recognize prior to having seen it on this card.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And it also comes with a new... So, in Arkham 3rd, you have those little deck holders for the... Are they the Mythos cards? The neighborhood cards? The
It's
Doom
I can't remember what
cards?
they're called, but
Yeah. You know what I'm talking about. There's a new one of those, so I don't know if it's introducing a whole new deck or whether it's changed something about the way that works, but there's a new one. So that's all I got so far. Also, Diana seems interesting.
Shocker.
And then, in addition to that, there was also Arkham Horror Final Hour, which is a brand new game entirely. The big selling point with that is that it's supposed to play under 60 minutes. Ian, you picked that one up, right?
Yep, I did buy that. I was a little taken aback when it was announced because I was not like when I first saw the announcement. I was still in the lift on the way to the beer garden, and I was like, at first I thought it was an expansion to Arkham 3rd Edition, and that's a whole new game. But yeah, as happens at GenCon, I was in line. I was like, okay, I'll just buy it. So I bought it, and I have played it, but that was going to be my tentacle time. I don't know if I should talk about it now or later, but I guess I'll talk about it later.
let's just do a quick thumbs up, thumbs down.
It's more complicated than that.
Well then, okay, fine. We'll wait till 10.
It's not a thumbs down, but I think my initial impression is that it's a better multiplayer game than solo.
Sure. See, and
Most games are.
and my reservation with this is that, just looking at the premise of it, and I could very well be wrong, because I'm obviously just judging it by its cover, but I'm like, it's not a format, it's not a game that, to me, lends itself to the Arkham universe, or at least to what I want from the Arkham universe.
It is, yeah, it's definitely very different than any other Arkham Files game. Because there's a certain amount, obviously there's differences, but there's a certain amount of similarities in Arkham, which is you throw a certain amount of dice to get successes, and you can spend something to re-roll and that kind of thing. At least for the board games. Obviously the LCG is a different beast, but Final Hour is... I don't want to call it a Euro because it's not, but you know what I mean? It's less of that random dice chucking and more of analyzing the board, figuring out your best move, and
it's more of a puzzle.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Interesting.
Quite. All right. Well.
And then there was some Star Wars junk that they announced. Some Legion.
There usually is.
Yeah.
All right. Well, moving on from there. Thursday, got up bright and early and headed straight into play The Blob. So the first group, at least that I played with, was Nick and Maura and Justin. It was team... Did we give ourselves a name? We didn't give ourselves a name.
No.
We should give ourselves a name
dare you.
posthumously.
I mean, if we gave ourselves a name, the Blob ate it.
There you go.
True story. True story. So before we dive into talking about The Blob, we'll just go ahead and say we're going to talk light mechanics. We'll talk about stuff that probably you would have surmised just from the theme or from reading the preview article, but we're not going to dive into crazy spoilers at this point. Fair enough, guys?
I think we're probably just going to talk most about the experience, how it was us sitting there playing, and not so much about the scenario itself.
Right.
Right?
So,
Yeah.
Before someone panics and hits the pause button because they don't want to say anything, I just wanted to throw that out there.
Sure.
So overall impressions, I thought it was really fun. Really, really enjoyed this one.
Yeah, it was good. It's one of those that I think playing true solo, it's going to be fucking awful. Just because there's so much ground to cover, and there's,
It'll be rough,
I mean,
yeah.
it will, yeah.
I mean,
but
why will you though?
because the game says 1 to 4 players, Sean. But no, I think multiplayer, like 4-player, it'll be fun, and epic multiplayer was an absolute blast. It's a different kind of epic multiplayer than Labyrinths was, like rather than feeling like you're separate but also working concurrently, it felt more like it felt how do I say this? Like it felt almost like alternate reality sort of stuff where like everybody, because you didn't get a sense that there's other groups doing other things until you looked up at the board and went like, oh no, like suddenly we're losing countermeasures or suddenly there's health that's gone or whatever. You know what I mean? So it was a different kind of, I think it was a more elegant way to do epic multiplayer, but also kind of less interesting.
Okay.
Maybe?
Okay.
It was really good. I really dug it. I agree that maybe it was less interesting, but it was also so much easier to get into.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, I think Labyrinth is more unique and interesting as like a special event because you can't really capture what Labyrinths did in any other format except for GenCon or a special event. And then I think we all at some point talked about at GenCon how Labyrinths pretty much has just sat in our deck boxes since then. Whereas Blob, like I've already tried it two-handed once, and it's just as fun at home. Well, maybe not just as fun because epic multiplayer. There's always that added fun of being with friends and cursing other groups for using countermeasures and all that.
Oh my god!
But still, Blob is something that I will definitely include in campaigns and play again and again. So it definitely has that above Labyrinths, and that was one of the key things I was keeping my eye out for. And also, without spoiling what they are, the campaign rewards are awesome. So
oh my god,
yes,
definitely
they are.
incentivized
They're so
to play
good.
it. Yeah, and there's a few of them, so it's like yeah.
I didn't think Matt was going to be able to outdo the whistle Night Gaunt, the tamed Night Gaunt reward, but oh man, some of the ones from Blob are so cool.
Yeah.
So our game went really well. Well, until it didn't. So I have to tell my one story because it was GenCon, so of course I had to have my moment of salt. You can't get past it. It's just a part of how we do. So I was playing Diana. This build is kind of monster management / support, so it's got some healing. It's got obviously lots of cancel, that sort of thing. I was in the driver's seat. I had my 5 cards under Diana. I was sitting on a Deny Existence level 5 in my hand. I still hadn't burned my Dark Insight. Like, I had like 2 or 3 damage and horror on me. Full Enchanted Blade. Like, I was just in the driver's seat, not worried about much. And then a confluence of things happened. So first, I drew the Treachery that, like I said, light mechanical spoiler. Makes you grab 2 tokens from the Chaos Bag and then refer to a table as to what the blob is about to devour. And it devoured all of the events from my hand.
Yeah, it did.
How many events was that, Sean?
It was 5 events. It was 5 full events.
Are you sure it's just 5? Because Mora said it was 6.
I feel like I remember seeing 7.
The exact text I got from my wife, who is sitting next to you, said, Sean lost 6 events, and he is so mad.
I may have been blinded, but it might have been 6.
I wasn't here
Okay.
for this one, so I had to get up and leave by this point. But
Yeah, that's right. Nick had just bombed out. But yeah, so I lost all my events. So like with Diana, you're in vulnerable position at that point because most of Diana is just the feeling like, hey, I can handle kind of whatever comes at me, right?
Mm-hmm.
So question real quick before you go further. Timing question. The way that Treachery works, do you have to choose to cancel it before you draw the tokens?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
That's what I thought. All right, continue.
And now knowing what I know, I would have, obviously.
Right. Right.
But
But you couldn't have used. Oh no, because deny.
and deny wouldn't have done me
Existence
any
is a treasure.
good. My only option
'Cause
would
it
have
doesn't
been
discard,
Dark
yeah.
Insight. Anyway,
No. Right. Yeah. Okay.
So then enemy phase comes around. I take a couple licks from enemies, so I'm at like 3-ish damage in horror. Might be 4. I can't remember exactly where we were. My next upkeep draw is Terrible Secret. So I'm sitting at 3 or 4 horror. I've lost all of my cards that I've been saving. Like, I don't know if you guys have played Diana a lot, but what you do is you save either Dark Insight or one Deny Existence in your hand for Terrible Secret. Like, that's just how it works. And if you're not doing that, you're doing it wrong. Sorry to tell you. So I lost all my ability to do anything. I couldn't soak the horror to keep any of my cards. I had just had my Brother X blow up, so that wasn't an option. So I lost all my cards under Diana. So went from 6 willpower right back down to 1 in one fell swoop. Next upkeep draw was Paranoia. I lost
God.
8 resources.
Well, you didn't have anything to spend them on anyway, so I mean, it's fine, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the lighter of all of this. Like, that's the piece that could have been missing, and you still would have tumbled.
No, the Salt in the Wound, though, was then my next upkeep draw was Twilight Blade. Because now I have no cards under Diana, so here's Twilight Blade. Why not? So
At one point, Mora, who was playing with you, texted me, Sean got really mad and had to take a walk. When was that happening?
that was happening right in this moment because
Perfect.
Then I drew a treachery, and I can't remember. No, it wasn't a treachery. There's an enemy that makes you when you draw it, you have to evade it, and if you can't evade it, it gets a free swing on you. And I had taken enough beating at this point because I had lost all my things that I was 2 health away from dying. Sure enough, I commit everything I have. I was 1 up, draw like a -5, and I just got iced. Like, I went from being basically unkillable to dead in 3 turns.
I really
So,
thought
yes.
I thought you were not coming back when you walked away from the table.
I definitely eyed the I eyed the exit pretty hard on my way back from the restroom. Oh man, I was salty. I was made of salt in that moment. I've played a lot of Arkham, as you guys know, and anyone who's watched our Twitch channel has seen that I've had a lot of misadventures in doing so. I've never had a game turn that big that quickly. Ever. So, yeah.
It's like the encounter deck was like, I'm just gonna combo this player out.
Yep. That's exactly what happened.
Well, Sean is our real life Rex, so
Yeah.
It's true. And then I do also want to point out that we ultimately ended up beating that as a bigger group, so it all went well. We contributed our piece, even though I died. But we had the biggest blob of the weekend
In the
at
very
32
first game.
cards.
Very first game.
32 cards. It was
As in the blob
immense.
devoured 32, yeah.
Yep.
Wow.
I actually have a picture for that Mora sent me.
Are you gonna share it? Yeah.
I am.
Oh yeah, there it is.
we go. Yeah.
Look how many cards.
Look at that stack.
Look how many cards. It's ridiculous. Anyway, really good scenario though. Super pleased with it. When you get a chance to get a hold of it, I would highly recommend it.
That's a
And
great
Ian-
picture of someone's arm.
Well, Matt is pointing at the 0 health blob
Okay.
sheet. That's your winning time there, Sean.
Oh, that's right. Here, I've got one of that.
Yeah.
That I'm not going to bother to find right now. So I suppose since we're talking about Blob, we also played it at different times throughout the weekend. So Ian, definitely you throw in on your playthrough here too.
yeah,
As well.
our game was. I felt like I was playing as Jenny, Nick was Zoe in that game. Justin was Norman, right? And
Yep.
Sean, who did you pull for the game?
I played Min.
Min, that's right.
That's
yeah.
right. It was Double Seeker. I forgot
Yeah.
about that.
So I felt like we got hit hard by enemies from like turn 2, pretty much, like
Yeah.
that first Mythos, and it didn't really let up. So like I had some gun. I was playing big guns. Jenny had some guns, and she killed some stuff. But I don't think I was prepared for just how many enemies were gonna come out of that deck, like over and over again, and it lasts for a while. But overall, I think it went well for our group. Our group didn't make it out alive, but we contributed a lot to the final result, which was a win for everyone.
So the first group, you guys said that you don't know if we had a team title, but if we did, it got eaten by the blob. For the second group, our team title was definitely Team Countermeasure.
No,
Because thanks to Justin and a little bit of Sean,
Okay.
we added so many countermeasures to the group total, and it was so infuriating. Like, there was literally one time when I was like, oh, okay, like, Justin's like, that's 2 countermeasures. So I looked to Matt, and as soon as I tell him 2 more countermeasures, a person on the table, like, across from us was like, we just used 3 countermeasures. And I'm like, you fuck, like, serious, stop it! Like, stop it!
It was
Oh
a
my
real
God.
thing. It was a real thing.
Yeah. So we definitely, like, Justin, and I know Justin, like, prioritized it at a certain point. Like, that was your thing, was like, I'm just going to camp here and make countermeasures.
I wanted us to come out doing more good than bad on that, because it's important.
After a certain point, we were like, okay, we've met our overall damage quota. Things are kind of spinning out of control. Let's just pour as many countermeasures back into the system as we can. At least someone else will get to use them. Because I feel like we were playing a little bit faster than I think a lot of groups were.
Oh, yeah.
It always seemed like we were the first ones to
faster,
start throwing
yeah.
up damage, yeah.
Like, my deck literally ran out of steam. Like, I played longer than my deck was capable of playing. Because I used up both of my flamethrowers, I used up all of my allies, I used up my Time Worn brand, and my Colts got devoured. And I'm like, there's nothing, I don't have anything left. There's nothing I can do. Like, all I can do is run around and take hits. Like, that's it.
Yeah.
And that's what I did.
Yeah, I think that's both me and Nick were like the killers, and both our decks relied on guns with finite ammo, and so in that particular scenario, there's so much to kill that you run out. Like, I went through 2 contrabands and a typewriter and a 45 Thompson, and yeah, it was. So I'd probably tweak that, but overall it was really fun. I didn't have a moment of salt at the end, just a moment of disappointment that Nick and Sean had been knocked out, and me and Justin were set up for like a final kind of blaze of glory, and then we realized that we were about to advance, and bad stuff happened to us, and we lost because I had
so much time to plan this turnout.
Yeah, because I had to pull out. I was like trapped. I had to pull off an evade against 2 enemies, which were like low odds, and I made it. And I had a double or nothing ready. Justin, I think you had a premonition in hand, right?
Yep. I don't remember if it was that, but yeah, it was just set up perfectly, and we were getting there, and just had to get through one more phase, and no.
Oh, I think it was a time warp, maybe, not a premonition.
Yes, that's what it was.
So we were set up for a huge. I had a packed like typewriter ready for a double or nothing shot, but yeah, we'll never know what would happen. Forever haunted.
So I have a question as someone who didn't play, because I'm hearing this from you guys now. So when Matt's standing up there at the marker board, which is displaying the health and clues and countermeasures, which I still don't know what countermeasures do fully. But like, was it just kind of like auction house style? Like, you'd just be like, 3 damage, 2 damage, and he would just like quickly adjust, or
no, he
and
his what was his helper's name, Joe or something. Like, they would walk up and down, and they had Lord of the Rings threat trackers in their hands. So they would just look at your board, and if there was damage on the blob, they would tell you to remove the damage, and then they would up their threat tracker number, and then eventually they'd go back up to the whiteboard and erase it and rewrite it. Countermeasures, those do a number of different things, all of which are positive. No, I'm not gonna say what they do, like, because there's like 6 or 7 different things that countermeasures can do. But the point is that it's a pool.
It's a currency.
Yes, that everybody like it's one pool for all of the players.
Right.
And like so
but you guys would just be like, we got 2 countermeasures, and then
yeah, because
another team was
countermeasures there weren't tokens for them or anything, so you'd have to actually tell them when you got them. And there was there was one time specifically that I remember where I leaned back to tell Matt +2 countermeasures, and then the guy behind me says, "We just used 3," and I was ready to slap him. I was like, "You can't do that!" Like, no.
Yeah.
There's very much a personality of test.
I was so pissed. One around. That's what you get.
Yeah, I think we were definitely trying to be responsible and input more than we took out, but yeah.
Tempo, right?
You know.
Yeah, exactly.
Countermeasure tempo.
All right. Well, any closing thoughts on the Blob before we move on?
Super fun.
Yeah. I guess it is worthy of note because we mentioned it before that they kind of said that the extra large blob card would go only to teams that won, but the first 2 teams won, and then the event we were playing in, our team would have won anyway, but Matt changed it and announced that just everyone was going to get it no matter whether they won or not. But I think every group of the weekend actually won, so it was a moot point.
It was,
but it was still a nice gesture.
Matt went over 6.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it that way, he sure did.
Should have made it harder, Matt. Should have made it harder.
Quiet you.
I was happy with it.
I mean, make no mistake. Both of the games that I played, we ended by being defeated. Like,
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
we didn't win in the traditional way. We put up enough numbers before we went out. So
Well,
That
and the-
second game,
And-
our numbers were insane.
Yeah.
And more to mention too, the first game you guys played, you won by seconds.
It was
Yes.
down in the final minute, and at that point it was auction style, yelling out how much damage was left and how much was being put on there because it had, like,
It was tense.
It was close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think if you take it home and play it, like I played it 2-handed, I had to scoop the game like 3/4 because I realized I made some like rules things in the beginning. But anyway, from that, I could already tell it would be super tight, like 2 players. So I think it's about par with some of the other standalones in that regard.
all right. So moving on from there, Nick, the reason you had to leave, you had an RPG event that morning, right?
Yep, Ian and I went to play the Silver Needle, which was a short scenario for the One Ring first edition role-playing game, Lord of the Rings role-playing game. So Ian and I went to play that, and we sat down. I think there were 5 of us total playing, and it was only a 2-hour session, so it went pretty quick, but we actually covered a lot of ground in 2 hours, thanks to some very strong opening die rolls. Like, the first 3 or 4 tests were like, that's an epic success. Oh, that's a great success. Oh, that's another epic success. Like, great job.
Yeah.
It was my first time... Oh, go ahead, Ian.
Yeah, like, because I think Nick had the first one with a couple, and some of the other people at the table, yeah, and then you just saw the game master just, like, flip forward a few pages, like, skip over that.
In that resigned way that only a GM can do.
It was very clear, like, early on that we were getting further than he expected us to, which was great. Like, we didn't, like... I mean, the resolution was still kind of truncated, but we at least got to see what felt like 2 of the 3 acts. So yeah, no, it was my first time playing the One Ring. I don't know how I feel about the dice. It's interesting because it uses a D12 as its core die, and then your number, like your ranks in a skill, add a D6 to it. So if you have 2 ranks in a skill, you roll a D12 plus 2 D6, and the target number for most tests is 14. So it's a much flatter bell curve than like a D20 plus a modifier, like what D&D does. But it's also kind of like I didn't quite get the combat. We did one combat encounter, and I didn't really understand how the damage and everything worked there. But I think also that was just because we wanted to keep it moving, so I would just roll my dice and be like, Ian, what's this? Or talk to the game master like, this is what I got, you tell me what happens. It was a lot of fun, though.
Yeah, it was a fun session. I don't get to do a ton of in-person role-playing these days, so getting to do that, and particularly the One Ring, getting to do that in person was a lot of fun, and kind of had I think me and Nick talked about this at the end, but I think the good part is kind of everyone at the table got to have like their moment with their character. Like,
Yeah.
I had this Hobbit character, so at the end I had to do this whole role play scene, like smoking pipe weed to kind of get information out of this character. So,
Yeah,
as
it
you
was
do.
actually, it was pretty cool that everybody had a moment. I felt like I kind of dominated the early game because, well, so I don't know if you guys are familiar with One Ring, Sean or Scott or Justin, but when you're in like the explore or the travel part of the game, you basically have one person who acts as a guide, one who acts as a scout, and then you have that sort of thing. So everybody gets different roles, and I think I was the scout. So that meant I was like out in front, and because I nailed those die rolls, I really got to kind of command that early game part of it. So I was having a lot of fun with my dwarf character. And then as we went on, like pretty much once we did combat, then I kind of faded to the back, and then the other characters came forward at different points, and it was surprisingly character focused, but also quick for only being a 2-hour session. So
Excellent. I see a note here to talk about Wild Bills. Why don't you guys tell everyone what you did?
Well, I think I kind of paved the way for this on Thursday
totally.
lunch because I don't drink as much soda as I used to, but I'm still a sucker for like specialty soda. So I saw this thing, and everyone was like eating at lunchtime on Thursday, and then I went in this line, and I didn't see it curved around at first. So I ended up waiting like an hour or so for this freaking soda cup, and then you gotta spend like $40-50 to get a soda and refills for the weekend. So basically after that point I was like a slave to the Wild Bill's cup because I kept having to get refills to justify the cost.
And ended up drinking so much more soda than I
much.
guarantee
Yeah.
you would have drunk otherwise.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, 100%.
So then we go out to the beer garden. I think it was for like a late lunch or something later that day, and everybody kind of split up to get their food from the food trucks, and I'm standing there because I was going to get pizza, and I just look at the Wild Bills line, and there's only like 3 people in it, and I was like, well, I better do it now because it's not like a frickin' 3-hour line at this point. So I went in there, and I kept telling myself like, okay, if it's $25 for the mug and $5 a day for refills, that's not terrible, because I'll drink enough to offset that. So I get up there, and the lady's like, okay, what can I get you? And I just pointed at a mug. I said, I'll take that, and refills for the weekend. She's like, great. She totals it up, and it's like $58. I was like, oh. But there were people behind me, so I didn't want to like ask questions, and I was like, ultimately, that's still a dollar amount I'm fine with. It was just about $10, $12 more than I expected.
You could have just said that.
Well, it turns out that the mug that I picked out is one of the nicer mugs.
Okay.
So like I said, I'm still like I'm using it right now because I'm like I better fucking get use out of this thing because, oh man. But I mean the soda was good.
Okay, that is important, I guess.
I swear the most common phrase of the entire weekend is, do you think we have time to go get a refill?
Yep.
Because suddenly there's this debt that you have to fill
Yes.
back up. You know what I mean? Like, oh,
You just became
Suddenly-
slaves.
suddenly you're skids in real life.
Wild Bill's debts.
Oh god. So we rounded out Thursday with a big old game of D&D, orchestrated at least in part, and I assume most of the prep was done by you, Nick. So I'll just let you take this one away.
Sure. This to me was the moment of GenCon because it's like obviously it's no secret that tabletop role playing is my thing. Like that's what I love. I know, right? And not only that, but this was D&D, which is a system like 5th edition is a system I really really enjoy, and this was a format that I've never done before. So we met at Josh's hotel. He has there was a conference room or a community room that they had. And at first I felt bad for the other people that were using tables in that same room because it's a smaller room, and I was like, well shit, we're gonna have 12 people, 10 people here, and we're probably gonna be loud the whole time. But it ended up being great. We had 8 players and 2 DMs. Matt and I both ran the session, and we had the players. They started off as a single group, and it was really nice. We only had, I think all of us were there, like we all knew each other in person other than one of the players that showed up from our online crew. And I had a couple of other online people who tried to join in as well. Oh, this was for my Mirrors campaign, I should say that. My big West Marches Mirrors campaign. There were a couple people that asked if they could join last minute, and I was like, well, we've really kind of prepped for 7 to 8, and we have that 7 to 8, so it would really throw a wrench in the gears. So, like, that's fine. So, anyway, we had one group was Big Foam Loaf, or Dan, plus Justin, Sean, and Ian. And then the other group was Casey and Justin E. I think he goes by Osiluth on here. I'm not sure what his handle is on this Discord server.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, and then Josh, DeLarp guy, and Tom, who was from our Mirrors server that I've never met before. It was nice to meet him and play with him. And it was super fun because Matt and I, we crafted this encounter, this dungeon for the players to go through that had a lot of like role-playing elements in it, and like a level of social deception between Matt and I. We're both playing this NPC like entity that it's unclear, like when we're playing, if it's a one entity or if it's two of them, because Matt and I were both kind of playing them at the same time and only to our specific groups, and then occasionally Matt and I would switch groups, and the players had to do a lot of puzzling and sharing of information. I loved watching it all unfold and watching everybody like that's one of my favorite things as a dungeon master, as a game master, is to present a puzzle and then just to sit back and watch the players talk it out. And it was really cool with this because it ended up having like a light PvP element to it by the end.
Yeah, it did.
Because people were so like into one option or the other. But what did you guys think about it? Like, I obviously fucking loved every minute of it. There are a couple things I would change, but overall I was really happy with it.
I was fairly certain Ian was the bad guy.
I think that was a fairly common understanding. Yeah, I had a blast with it, and my warlock character, who's like a Haster warlock, it kind of fit right into his whole shtick, so I had fun.
It totally did.
Messing with the other players a little bit.
I still think you were the bad guy.
I mean, he is a bad guy. He just wasn't the bad guy from this session. So
Disagree.
The whole time I was like ready to just like do something at the end. I was like, I haven't been playing in Mirrors that end. I could totally just make him a bad guy. But then I was also like, I could also go against expectations too. So, but yeah, I had a lot of fun. I think it's like something, obviously a kind of quest scenario thing that you couldn't do online. Right. It only works in that in-person format, and I think you guys did a good job of taking advantage of that format too. Like, there were so many like sidebars and groups and like, oh, get your ass over here, like you need to be in this conversation, and like spreading out around the room. So that was really cool.
Put the sun key in the moon hole.
Well, and there's
no, not that moon hole.
there was a couple moments too when like a character was speaking to the entity that Matt was playing, and like he was just talking at the table. I was like, take him to the corner, like you two just talk by yourselves. And like that became a thing then too, where rather than having a conversation with one person at the table with everyone else, we then take people away. And it got to a point too where I pulled Sean and had Sean play an NPC ? And that was really fun. Justin,
I mean,
this was.
Who are you preventing from spoilers here?
That's true. Like,
basically,
I guess I
just
don't.
had me play a fake projected version of my character, but had me go deliver the lines so that on the metagame it seemed plausible.
Well, and that was something that I wanted to do. Like, that was because that was something that when Matt and I were planning the session, I was like, I really want to take a player from each group and have them speak to the other group as an imitation of themselves. I'm like, but it ended up not really working. But then the character that approached the window to speak with the entity was Justin's character, And Justin, this is his first session, like not only in this campaign but of D&D in general. And so
right.
I was like, I can't pull any one of the characters from like town that all these other people know. It has to be someone that both Justin is familiar with and his character would be familiar with. So I was like, I guess it's Sean. Like, I get to do this anyway. So Justin, as your introduction to Dungeons and Dragons, what did you think?
I had a good time. It was a super interesting scenario to jump in on with the multi-part room and all the extra moving pieces. But I mean, overall, it was cool. I appreciated that you guys steered me toward building a character that basically just got to smash things with a hammer, because then I didn't have to worry about a whole lot. I could just observe a lot of it, and then my turn comes up and I smash it. I smash it again. But
yeah, no, it was a lot of fun, and like we discussed too, I'm excited to, since you're probably not going to play in the campaign again because it's like 98% an online campaign. I'm excited to take Hector the Hammer and turn him into an NPC that players can run into on the road. This Paladin of Vengeance that's now chasing this escaped entity across Miris. It'd be really fun.
Oh, it's gonna be badass.
But yeah,
Hector's amazing.
Totally. No, that session really did. That was my primary. Well, I shouldn't say that was my best moment of Gen Con, because there's another moment that happened on Saturday that I'll talk about too. But that's definitely one of the two. Like, this defined this year's Gen Con to me, and it makes me so excited for next year and doing, if Miris is still going to do something similar. I will also say real quick that I mentioned that I met Tom, who's from our Miris Discord, but I also met Gage, he was formerly a player in Miris. He doesn't play anymore, but he has a podcast called Gaming with Gage that they do a lot of role-playing discussion and interviews and stuff like that. I would suggest that if you have any interest in tabletop role-playing games, you check that out. Gage is a wonderful guy. Had a lot of conversations with him, and it was nice to meet him in person as well. And I think we finally got started. We met at a little after 8, and then we finally got started at 9:30, and we wrapped a little after 2, I believe it was. Yeah. So it was a late night, but super fun.
Yeah, it was a really good time. It was good to get back to Freya, who I had not. I played like one game with her, with that character.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anyway. So Friday, yeah, we did play the Blob again. We went back and got some lunch at Granite City, which is always a pleasure. And then
just one word for it.
Yeah, well, maybe that time it wasn't the best. The service was.
I've been to Granite City 4 times. That Granite City specifically, and every time there's been something. Like, we've always walked away with a story that doesn't put it in the best light. So.
It's true. That one is a little bit rough. Like, you come and eat at the ones that are actually in Minnesota.
Yeah.
Which is where the restaurant comes from. You generally have a better time. But anyway, then we went and played Lord of the Rings LCG. Which was fun, I guess. I'm kidding. It was good. It was fun. It was fine. I just, playing across from Caleb, and I can say this because I know Caleb is never going to listen to this episode unless Matt just goes and throws headphones in his ear at some point. But
which would be funny.
Yeah, that would. Seeing the power decks that Caleb plays, I just go, yeah,
oh, God.
That all makes sense. That tracks.
So it was Sean and I against the lead developer of the game, Caleb, and the designer of the scenario, Ian. So, I mean, already we were doomed from the start. But then I was like, I'm talking with Sean, and I was like, I want a deck that's like give me a lore deck that has a bunch of like fiddly stuff to play with, because I like my really fiddly lore decks. And so he gave me a questing Noldor, I think it was Noldor deck. Was it Noldor? I don't remember now. Sylvan, okay. And so, like, every turn I'm questing for, like, 12 or 14 or 16. I'm like, this is really good. And then there was one turn, like, once Caleb got set up with his fucking Hobbit Fellowship gangbang over there.
I know, he was
He's
using
like,
brand new cards, too.
Oh my god, he's
he
like,
had-
I'm
he had
questing
his
for
advanced copy.
26. Questing for fucking 26, and I just look at Sean, I'm like, what am I doing here? Like, why is he literally 10 higher than me? Oh, but it was actually a lot closer than we're making it sound. Like, we had the game in our pocket, but then we just happened to get the treachery that would have doomed us. I don't remember. It was one that damaged all the characters. You dealt damage equal to the number of characters you had, or something like that, and it was just rough. But yeah,
My card draw dried up. Yeah, dried up. As mentioned earlier, Lord of the Rings, the base framework of the game just doesn't give you enough cards. You just can't. You
or
just
resources.
Can't. Right. So yeah, I died because I couldn't get bodies on the board, and that's pretty much the ending to most games of Lord of the Rings I play nowadays.
Yeah, it was pretty close until the end, like Nick was saying, until that last turn or two. It was funny because me and Sean, it wasn't exactly the same deck, but it was pretty close because we were both playing Elfhelm Mount shenanigans. Yeah, but it was fun. Like, I can finally talk about the fact that I worked with Caleb to help develop the scenario, and and it was fun seeing people play it and to be on that side of the equation of like, yeah, I remember like coming up with this effect. So yeah, it was fun having that experience for sure.
And I didn't pay as close attention, but were our encounter decks as similar as they were the year before, or did we have more of a... It felt like we had more of a variance.
I think there's a little bit of a variation. Like last year, there were definitely kind of themes going on too, but this time around, we definitely wanted to make sure they were very defined. Like, that players could be like, I want to build a spider deck for the other team to face, or I want to build this cool Moria goblin swarming deck. Like, that was kind of the goal, to enable that. So I think, like, obviously if two teams kind of embrace that wholeheartedly, their decks will be pretty similar. But yeah, I think we had some similar cards, but I think it was a little bit more variation this time.
Right.
The ones that we happened to build for each other, though, were like, there was maybe one set different.
Mm-hmm.
Was it that close again this year?
Yeah,
okay, because I know last year it was literally one set different between the two decks.
Yeah, I think the big differences were the quest cards we picked for each other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
like
that's true.
you guys picked the attachment one, which is like an effect that I remember coming up with. So I was like, I got screwed by my own effect. he captured Caleb's hobbit cloak and my horse. And then yeah. So I think that's why it felt a little different, is because we picked different like stage 2s and stage 3s for each other.
And yeah, anyway, it was really fun. I think I mentioned it last year. The kind of 2v2 competitive mode is actually a lot more fun than I would have expected. I think it's more fun if you don't take it like 100% seriously. Because I guess that's just me, though. If you inject too much competition into a game, it loses the fun for me. But the thing is like, okay, last year it was all good and fun. It was in Mirkwood, whatever. But Moria is always my favorite setting, so I'm really excited that I like now have this thing that I can just dick around with whenever I want to play a Moria quest, and it'll still feel different.
Well, and not only that, but in my semi-quasi-limited experience with Lord of the Rings, 2-player seems to be the strongest way to play it. And this lets you play 4 players, but you're still doing a 2-player game.
Yes.
So that was really fun.
Yep, 2-player Lord of the Rings has long been the best form for my money.
It is also really fun to watch the other team stumble upon the traps that you set for them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right, so moving on from there, I think that Friday was kind of the only day that at least I really let myself do much of the dealer hall. Yeah, like I mentioned last year, I got really burnt out on the dealer hall experience. I personally ended up not picking anything up. Well, what'd you guys all get?
Justin and I both picked up Draftosaurus.
Oh yeah, that's right. With the little cute the cute little dino meeples.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I haven't had a chance to play that yet. Have you, Justin?
I haven't had a chance to play it with anybody else. I've just kind of walked through it on my own. I think it's gonna be fun. I mean, the name says it all. It's just a drafting game with dinosaurs. I picked it up. I picked it up because if a game has fun meeples, then it's easier to get my wife and some of her friends to try and play it, as opposed to just, wow, look, it's a wood cube. It counts as points. But yeah,
it definitely does have.
That was fun, and then it helped that it was in the one corner of the hall where we could walk by, and then we'll get to this for when we recap Saturday. But because we walked back to where this one was, we saw the art for a different game called Deranged.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Okay.
Do we,
we're jumping a day.
It's the next notable thing that happened. Let's just go with it.
well, before we
Yep.
jump that far, then I'm going to give a little backstory. While you guys were playing Lord of the Rings, which I do not play, I was wandering the exhibitor hall, and I always wander and pull up browser windows. And so I'll see, hey, this game looks neat, but I don't have time to stand in the line, and so let's just look it up later. And so I got about 12 to 15 different games to research, and then I sat down with you guys while you were finishing your Lord of the Rings game, so that then I could weed through them and know which ones to go back to. And the one that really stood out to go back to on Saturday was a game called Deranged. And as much as I would love to talk more about Deranged because of how much fun I had with it, I think we should let Nick tell the story of Deranged.
I feel like I'm capitalizing the GenCon stories this year. All right. So I remember you talked about it. I felt like you talked about it earlier than that, but if that was the first time you saw it, then yeah, we had a conversation at least Thursday at some point, and I was like, this sounds really cool. Like, I love the idea that there's that, like, it's this gothic sort of part survival, part PvP, like semi-cooperative sort of game where there's a day-night cycle, and at night some person might change into a deranged character, and then their goal suddenly becomes to kill another character. But death doesn't mean you're out. Like, there's no player elimination, which is really cool. So I was like, yeah, okay, this sounds really fun.
And it goes up to 5 players, right? That's important.
3 to 6.
Okay.
So yes, 5. It hits that. Yeah, it hits that checkbox. And then we went to we got to the convention center, and this was on Saturday. So it was between the. Was it? No, this was before the listener event. Yeah, yep. So it was between like our morning and the listener event. And Ian sat down to playtest his game with Carlos, and then we dropped our stuff off. And that was when you guys went to peruse the dealer hall, and I was like, well, I'm going to go get some more Wild Bills because I've got this, this
damn it.
ball and chain I'm dragging from my neck.
Hey guys, do you think I have time for a refill?
So I went and got that, and then I text, and you guys told me where you were, and I'd track you down. And everybody's sitting down. It was Sean, Justin, and Casey, and then another dude sitting down to play a demo of Deranged. I was like, oh, sick. I'll sit down, and I'll be the 5th player. So we played that, and it's really fun. And Justin was one of the deranged characters, and as soon as he became deranged, like, he got this look on his face that it was like pure love, like he was in love with this game at that point. And it was really hitting me like, this is a lot of fun. This is one that my game group would really latch on to because it's semi-cooperative. This is one that my wife would probably play. And then the guy's like, okay, well, no, I think it was Justin or the other guy asked, how much is it? And the demoer said, well, it's not for sale, but come back at 5:15, and we'll be doing a giveaway for 5 pins, 3 shirts, and a copy of the game. And so Justin was immediately like, we're coming back here, or I'm coming back here at that time. I'm like, I'll definitely do it. Like, if one of us can do it, then, that increases our odds. Anyway, so we did our thing, and we came back at around 5, and there was probably a total of about 50 or so people.
I think it was right at 50.
Yeah, right around there at least. But yeah, 50 people. And at that point, my anxiety was going up because the more I looked at the game, the more I wanted it. But I was like, there's no way that that I'm going to win this drawing with this many people here. So then I started like cracking jokes to like the people in line around me and really drawing attention to myself as a way to kind of diffuse that disappointment that I was expecting to get.
I got a
so
pin.
they gave us our numbers and they did the drawings and the 5 pins went out and Sean got one and Morton got another one.
Oh, yeah?
Yep. And at that point, once the 5 pins got out and I didn't get picked, I was like, okay, maybe maybe my odds are pretty good. And then the shirts go out and none of our group got the shirts.
I was
and then
really
they called
worried I was going to win the small t-shirt.
Right.
For anyone who does not know me in person, I would not fit in a small t-shirt if I tried.
Accurate.
And then they do the drawing for the board game, and they call my number, and I immediately scream in jubilation to the shock of the people in my immediate vicinity. And they handed me this, this cellophane wrapped copy of the board game with a sticker on it that says pre-release, like demo copy or whatever, and there's no barcode, and like I'm super excited. And I'm talking with Justin because then, they're perfect. So Justin is like, I'll buy it from you, because that was his thing, was like, you kept saying like, if whoever wins it, you'll offer to buy it. And at that point, I was riding the high of winning. I'm like, I don't think there's any way I can sell this. Like, I'm so excited for this now. And the whole time I'm talking to Justin, there's somebody tapping my arm, and I missed it. Like, and finally I turn and look at him, and it's one of the guys who works for the company that made the game, Hobby World. And he's like, I want to take your picture with the game. I was like, oh, great, yeah. So we did that. But yeah, then I was basically cradling this game the rest of the day. Like, this was my pride and joy. So this was the other moment of Gen Con that I was like, between the double D&D session and winning Deranged, that's Gen Con 2019 for me.
My eardrum is still recovering from that particular moment. I'm standing there. I'm like happy I won something. I got the pin. The pin's cool. I'm not generally like the kind of guy who's like, ooh, a pin, but it's winding down, and I'm just kind of riding it out till the end, and then all of a sudden I hear 42, and then from behind me Nick goes, wow! And yes, my eardrum is still ringing. I'm really excited to actually sit down and play that game, though.
It was fun to play it at After Dark and get to dig in a little more. I'm real excited to dig in past just playing the intro scenario on our own. But yeah, there's some really good bones there.
I totally agree. We did the intro scenario at After Dark, which, I mean, that's what we should have done at After Dark, because the intro scenario only took about 20 to 30 minutes, whereas a regular game, I think it says it takes around an hour and a half. I was getting, like, during that intro scenario, I was like, okay, like, the mechanics are still really cool, but now I'm to the point where I need more going on. So I'm really, and just a little, I think it was just yesterday, I actually like spilled out all the components of the board game and organized them all, because it came with all these different baggies and everything, and I was reading the rules and everything. So now I'm super excited to try everything that it has to offer. I think next time I teach it, I'm just going to skip the intro scenario and just go right into, playing the actual game. So
excellent. So let's get to the big moment that people have probably been doubting whether or not they should hang on for.
After Dark.
Yes. Exactly.
Oh,
Rickshaw.
Saturday at 1 p.m. was our third annual Mythos Busters listener event, and boy, did we have something special this year. And Ian, I feel like it's only right that you should be the one to intro it to anyone here who maybe wasn't paying attention to our social media.
Oh, sure. So we have been hyping this swag for months and months, because we wanted to do a better job of stoking the hype train this year. And so back on episode 40, I believe it was, Cthulhu Catnip, we did a brainstorm session where we each brought a piece of a scenario, like the theme, mechanics, location, etc. And then together we came up with eventually a scenario that we entitled Consternation on the Constellation. Well, I think Sean titled it that, but
Sure sounds like something I'd say.
basically a whole scenario focused on being trapped on an ocean liner and trying to escape before it sinks, and all kind of chaos bag manipulation, all that kind of good stuff. Originally, it was just a fun exercise, and then after, we're like, that was really fun. We should make that into a scenario. And wouldn't that make great GenCon swag? So that is exactly what we did. We worked hard over a span of several months to create the scenario. We play tested it, did all that kind of stuff you would hopefully want to do to make a good scenario. And then we got a copy printed for everyone who came to our event. So I think from the reactions of people there, no one saw it coming, and it seemed like people were excited to get another, scenario in their hands that they could play at Gen Con. All the groups that were at our event played it. It would have been a little sad if they're like, oh, cool, and then they pulled out, like...
Whip out the blob.
Take out the... Oh, that would have been great if they take out, like, the second scenario from the core box or something.
Yeah, let's play The Gathering again instead.
Yeah.
Let's play
Return
Lord of
to
the
Dunwich.
Rings.
That one would cut deep.
Yeah. So yeah, people played it. They had a good time. Of note, we actually, to do the cover art, and we actually use this art for the acts and agendas as well. We commissioned an artist. I always want to say it's Worlds Collide because of Power Man 5000, but I think it's the Treachery Worlds merge from, I want to say, Black Star's Rise. Ethan Patrick Harris is the artist name. We love that art, so we asked him if he would do the piece for us, and he said yes. Did great work, and he created this very cool cover art for us that you can see on our social medias and various places if you see the picture of our cover.
Oh man, that came out so well. I'm keeping it again.
He did such a
And
good job.
also big thanks to listener Merrick, who did the templating on our cover card too, because the weather worn rusty manhole, not manhole, porthole.
Whoa.
Porthole. Hang on. I mean, dial it back. It's okay.
If you try hard enough.
Yeah, he did great.
Anything's a manhole if you're ambitious.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, I gave him very little direction. I just said, we want something nautical themed, maybe like a porthole involved, and yeah, he did an amazing job on that template.
But yeah, so the reaction I thought was really good. I'm really proud of the work we did, and as I alluded to earlier, we've had a lot of projects going on. Scott was the project leader on the musical episode. Ian was definitely the project leader on Constellation. We all helped. We all worked on it. But yeah, Ian, just thanks again for the work you put in on it. I think it yielded dividends.
Well, just like seeing people have fun with it, and yeah, as people kind of cleaned up their stuff and were leaving, all the feedback it seemed like people really enjoyed the scenario, so all that hard work was worth it ultimately.
Well, I think they even just loved that it existed too. I mean, it's a good scenario, it really is. But were you standing by me, Ian? I know Sean and Nick weren't, but I was helping with the just handing it out, and there was one person who had walked up a little bit later, and he was saying something like, oh, we get swag, is it more poker chips? And it's, no, here's your scenario, and just an audible gasp. It was amazing.
Yeah, I think even when I was announcing it, because I think there were a few people who were saying like they were hoping that it actually got made at some point, so that was good to hear.
It was such a hard thing to like keep quiet about because
God, tell me about it.
Like there was like you said, Ian, there's many people who are like, oh man, you guys should totally make that consternation, like you should make that into a scenario. And there was one like a week before, and I think someone added me, is like, hey, have you guys ever actually thought of making that scenario? And I was just like, oh yeah, that might be fun in the future. Ha ha ha. Yeah. And about a 50% win ratio on the first go is what I heard.
Yep, that sounds about right.
That's what it seemed like, yeah.
Yeah, it was about that. So it seems like pretty good balance, which is good.
Mm-hmm. The one thing that kind of got cut in testing that I'm a little bit sad. I mentioned it early on, but we never actually put it on. It's totally fine. But on the back of like Agenda 1, when it flipped, I wanted to say at the very bottom, if your name appears in the front of an Arkham product, take 1 mental trauma. Just as like a poke to Matt. But
sadly, Matt was not able to sit down at our event and play. His timeline was a little bit too tight this year. But yeah, the scenario was great. The event was fun. Thanks everyone for coming out. We got to meet we saw a bunch of returning faces, of course, and then we got to meet a bunch of new people. So, man, just a big thanks to everyone who showed up at our event. When you throw these kinds of things, there's always a little bit of anxiety that goes with it. Obviously, when we sold out right away, that's pretty easy to alleviate. But still, we want to recognize that, the whole reason we do this podcast is to interact with the Arkham community. So it's always the highlight. It's always a pleasure to run the listener events, and hope everyone had a good time.
Mm-hmm. And I know the big questions coming were people who were at the event, who weren't at the event, whether they'd have a way of playing this scenario. So ultimately what we've decided is we will be releasing the Constellation files to everyone, so you can kind of print and play at home, that kind of thing. But we'll be waiting to release those until after Arkham Nights, just as a special thank you to those who attended our GenCon event. So you can think of it kind of as like, GenCon events, like the Blob comes out and then everyone else gets to buy it and play it a few months later. Same kind of deal with our Constellation. We'll be releasing those files to everyone after Arkham Nights, so no matter where you are, you'll be able to play it in some form at some point.
Yep, and we did have a few extras made up. So we'll probably be giving those away at various times for various reasons. We don't really have solid plans on that yet, but also pay attention to the podcast if you want your own physical copy. Okay, so moving from the listener event, then we were basically on into After Dark, right?
I mean, after a short rickshaw ride, we are definitely. So, scheduling didn't really work out. Like, we ended up hitting a couple hiccups in schedule, so we all kind of had to split up, going from supper to After Dark. And part of that meant that Ian and I were going to stop back at the car, drop all our stuff off, and then head to the Slippery Noodle. And we're like, well, let's do the whole rickshaw thing, because we don't know, we've never done that before, and it seems like a quick alternative. And I felt so bad for this lady. Really nice gal. We were like, how much does it cost to go from here to our, and we say where we're parked. And she's like, I just work for tips. And we're like, oh, great. So we just climb on. And it started off great. Like, from the ICC to the parking lot was awesome. We dropped everything off. But then from the parking lot to the Slippery Noodle, there was a sizable hill. And it wasn't a steep hill, but it took a long time to crest it. And I felt so bad for this woman because she had this powerful urge to just keep the conversation going as she's huffing and puffing on her rickshaw, pulling Ian and I up this hill. And it hit a moment where I was like, I feel so bad, but we could actually get out and walk faster than this. But once we got over the hill, then she was fine. Like, then it went great. But yeah, it was quite an experience, and I felt so bad. But we made it, and we made it to the Slippery Noodle actually by 8. Like, Sean had just gotten there right before us.
I think we would have.
I had been there a little while.
We would have taken much longer without the rickshaw.
Yes.
I think.
Yeah.
I was definitely halfway into my first beer by the time you guys showed up. But yeah, so After Dark went great. It actually filled up a lot faster this year than it did in years before because we started at 8. People are still filtering in from events and from the from supper sometimes, and it's always a little bit of, again, anxiety. We're throwing a party, like, oh, is anyone gonna show up? But yeah, the room fills up really quickly, and the Cardboard of the Rings guys were there.
Late.
Their fans. Yeah, you go.
I'm sorry.
I'm sure you're going for the same thing I was about to.
I would, because it's like I'm the one guy who doesn't, like, I don't know much about Lord of the Rings, like the game. I can't really hold a conversation. I feel, so I was standing by the table with the name tags. People show up, and this happened like 2 or 3 times where it's just us. It's just the Mythos Busters hosts there so far. And a couple people come in, and I'm like, hey, do you guys play Arkham? They're like, no, we play Lord of the Rings. Okay, cool. They're like, Cardboard of the Rings? I'm like, they're not here yet, but you can grab a table, and I won't talk to you. And it's just like, oh, it's so awkward. Oh, man. And then they finally show up at like 8:30 or whatever, and I'm like, you guys as fans have been here waiting. Like, where were you, man? Like, be professional. I'm just kidding. They're great.
It was a stern lecture, man.
Yeah, those guys. To be fair, though, they are just continuing the brand on. Back when I was part of Cardboard of the Rings, we always showed up late to our own shit, so...
Oh, I see.
That's just how we roll. Yeah, but After Dark was great. Trying to remember what some of the bigger games that were being played. I got roped into a couple more games of fucking Princess Tofu, which is the social deception game that I am just objectively the worst at.
Because I feel like most of the deception is of yourself when you play that game.
Which, if you give me a string and a mace, somehow I'm going to tie myself up in the center with it. That metaphor got away from me.
It's okay.
Much like the string. Oh, yeah, and you guys played Unmatched. How was that? I only got to watch.
It was good.
That is my game of After Dark, and one of my games of GenCon as a whole. It's so fun. It's so fun. It's So
for those who are unversed on Unmatched,
it is kind of like a skirmishy game where you're one character and their sidekicks from like myth and legend. So in the core, there's like Medusa and Sinbad and King Arthur and Alice. And expansions, there's Bigfoot and Bruce Lee and Robin Hood. So just all these characters, you pick one. There's a board, which is like smallish. It is a re-implementation of, what is the game called?
Epic Duels.
Epic Duels, yeah.
Star Wars Epic Duels.
Yeah, so re-implementation of that, but it's kind of like a card-driven system, attacking, defending, using special abilities, but I think describing it doesn't really do it justice, because it's on the shorter side, and it's just, and I feel like every game I played 2 After Dark, it was very close. Like the last game I played, it was me and Casey left standing, and basically I had 1 hit point left, and Casey got knocked out. So it was like super close every game that I played.
When you guys, he got knocked out by the rules. Like that's how close it was.
Yeah.
Did he deck himself?
It was this war of attrition between the two of you. It was awesome.
Who was he playing?
He was playing Alice.
Yeah.
Oh god, fuck Alice.
And I was Bigfoot. I have a new love for Bigfoot now.
The game that I played in, I was Bruce Lee, who was amazing. Like, he's so fun. I was the first one to go out, but I think that's because I kind of went after everybody. And Chad was sitting next to me from COTR, and he was playing Bigfoot. And every normal cards have an attack value of 3, maybe 4. And he would just play a card as Bigfoot, attack of 7, and we're like, oh my god, what the fuck? Oh, no, super fun game. It's really simple. It's easy to pick up, it's easy to play, but it has a lot of strategic depth to it.
Yeah.
So it's very, very, very satisfying to play.
I think especially, I'm curious to try 2-player, because especially 4-player, well, we were playing, I think you can play teams, we were playing kind of Battle Royale, everyone against everyone style. So that was interesting to be like, who do you take on? Usually it starts off with one-on-ones, but then when do you switch to attack someone else? And kind of my whole strategy is Bigfoot as I kept running off so that other people would fight each other. And there's a lot there. I already have it pre-ordered, so
same.
Oh, I need to do that. Yeah. And it has this really cool, if you look at this board that I shared in the chat, it has this really cool zone, or I can't remember what term they use, but this region system to determine range. So your ranged characters can generally make attacks against any character that's on a space that shares a color with your current space. And then each board has 4 or 5 different colored spaces, which is a really cool way to handle range that doesn't require you to count spaces or measure or anything like that. And
It simplifies
we're playing...
line of sight for range.
Yeah.
too,
Oh,
right?
totally,
Big time,
totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're playing, and Matt was like, "Yeah, it's such a good system. It's almost like they stole it from an FFG game." And I was like, "Wait, what FFG game does this?" And he's like, "Tannhauser." I'm like, "Nobody's heard of Tannhauser. Like, you can't play that card with a that kind of game." Like, so it's really fun. I'm super glad that Matt picked it up because then getting to play those games was amazing.
Yeah, I'm kind of sad that he did because now there's another game that I'm gonna buy, that I bought, but it's just so and the minis look awesome because they put this cool wash on it that I wish more games did that because it's a simple thing that just makes the minis look 1,000 times better.
I think we talked about that at least 5 different times at GenCon because it is so easy, but they look nice even out of the box.
Especially because I'm a person who never has or will paint minis just because I don't have the skill or patience, so it's nice to have that.
Well, and one of the last things I'll say about it is that their upcoming expansion is Jurassic Park themed. So, yay!
I'm excited for that.
I'm really hoping someone throws this on Tabletop Simulator so we can get some games going online. Yeah.
I'd be down. Trying to think what other games do you guys see at After Dark? Oh yeah, Nick, you hopped down for a game of Wars with John, which
I certainly
left you
did.
both spent for a while.
Oh my god, he described it so. John and I played. I played one of my super busted Earther control decks, and he brought a Ganjan Swarm deck, and he ended up winning just because he had more things than I could deal. Like, I would kill all the units he'd put into play, but then he would just play more, and I'm like, I can't, like, this is too much. Like, I can't do, I'm not used to this level of Swarm. So he ended up winning. But he described it when we got done. He was like, this is very much, he's like, there's a lot of brain burn, but it's not an unacceptable amount. Like, it's a satisfying amount of brain burn. I was like, that's so true. Like, when you get done, and now not playing it as often, I really do appreciate that, because we get done playing and I'm like, oof, like, wow, I need to light a cigarette. I don't even smoke. Like, give me a break here. But it's super fun still. And because now I play so many other games, whereas back when, Star Wars or this were my thing, that's all I would play. So I probably didn't notice the brain burn. I also had more brains to burn back then. So, but yeah, really fun.
Excellent. There was a big game of Secret Hitler going on too, there wasn't there?
There was. I sat in for one, and by that point I was already kind of spent for the night, so my energy was really low. I wasn't shouting at everybody like I normally am. But still, we ended up winning. The Liberals won, so that was nice. But yeah, I think they played like 3 or 4 times before I even sat down, and everyone else, of course, was really into it.
Yeah, it was an interesting After Dark for me, because this year I felt like I was more in the mode of less drinky, social gamey, and more like just sitting down and playing games at After Dark, which was fun too. Like, because it was like a last chance to get some gameage out, so it was fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I always play the drinky social game. That's my jam at After Dark.
But you win, so.
Yes, exactly. I do win. I'm trying to think what else. There was one other thing I wanted to mention about After Dark, and now I'm losing it. Someone else go.
I don't know. I mean, we talked about everything I did.
Yeah. I won the most important game of all, which is fitting everything into my backpack on the airplane. That's a game in itself.
Except your mug, there, buddy.
Yeah.
I don't think you get to count that one.
No, that's a mental trauma right there.
It's in good hands, Ian.
Yes. So the trauma is healed.
Ting, ting, ting.
All right. Well, so I mean, from there we just kind of went our separate ways. Nick and I had a fun ride home with my car almost breaking down on us.
Oh my god,
that was scary times.
Luckily, I had just been through something very similar with my wife, so I was actually much more calm. Also, it wasn't my car, so I was much calmer. And I was just kind of like, okay, like I've seen similar symptoms before. We can get through this. was there any lasting damage to anything?
I don't know. My
did you get
mechanic
it
looks
looked
at it tomorrow.
Okay. Oof. Well, here's hoping.
Yeah, that reminds me. I got to call and leave a message to let him know what the hell's going on. Note to self. Yeah, so good Gen Con this year, guys. I had a really good time. I think a big part of it was, like I said, just kind of changing my personal approach to how I approached it. I didn't like how that sentence went.
Nobody
Not
did.
at all.
No, yeah, we did. We turned in early on Friday night, and we also had a pretty strong morning routine each morning of Gen Con, and that felt, and I think you guys agree, that felt better than like the previous years where, especially last year, just kind of had a weird funk to it where we kind of just felt like we were wandering aimlessly most of it.
Yeah.
I still swear there was a carbon monoxide leak in the in the frickin' hall last year.
Yeah, it feels like it. There's something weird. But yeah, in the pre-Gen Con episode, me and Nick kept talking about our big goal was to cut down an exhibit hall time and increase game time, and I definitely feel successful in that regard. Like, I didn't play a huge quantity of games, like trying out a bunch of demos, but I feel like everything I did was, quality game experience, so I'm happy with it. It was a really good Gen Con.
Yeah. The only casualty, the only thing that I'm like, I really regret not doing is Alien, because we had that slated for Friday evening. But the trade-off was that we had an early night, and we were able to charge our batteries really well for the long day that ended up being Saturday.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the trade-off was much appreciated. But now that just means it's that much longer till I get to actually play the Alien RPG.
Well, the trade-off was really worth it. It's a thing I'm going to do every year going forward, just kind of that middle of the con recharge. Because, I want to go and do something every night, but I feel like I got so much more out of the rest of the time I was there just by chilling, eating some pizza in the hotel room.
I agree. Yeah. I'm not entirely comfortable with how much I'm growing up, but I acknowledge that it's happening.
Yeah.
We're also missing a couple of our more raucous party elements in the group this year, too, so we'll have to see how that goes in future years. But yeah, great Gen Con, guys. Just
Agreed.
Such a good time. So I suppose let's go ahead and wrap this episode up with a little bit of tentacle time, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Nick, why don't you start us out? What's grabbing you?
Oh boy. What have I been doing since Gen Con? Catching up on the D&D campaign of Mythos. I've been playing Bloodborne again. I'm on New Game Plus. And I have also started a hardcore playthrough of Resident Evil Remake 2. And then just last night I picked up a game called Darkwood that is super grimdark, super depressing.
Super woody.
Yeah, survival horror game that's really interesting. It's kind of a top-down camera style. Not isometric, it's straight top-down. Like it's like you're looking at a playmat, essentially. And the whole idea is that society has collapsed and the woods are growing faster than people can clear them. Like trees grow in the course of a few days. So it's like the opposite problem that we're actually having on our planet. It's really fun. And then last night I stayed up until 3:00 watching H Bomber Guy's A Measured Response playlist, because those are really fucking good.
I love that dude so much.
Those videos are so great. Like my wife, we started watching just like some funny survival horror video game videos, and my wife was just laying there with her head in my lap, and then she fell asleep, and I was like, well, I don't want to disturb her. Let's check out this H Bomber Guy stuff. And then like 4 videos later, I'm like, yeah, those flat earthers can go fuck themselves. Like,
but I love, he laughs at flat earthers and completely tears apart everything they have, but I love how he brings that video around and is like, you know what they're actually doing? Like, they're just, it's misdirected energy, because there is something wrong with the world, isn't there?
And he does like all of his videos are all of those measured response videos are like that, where he takes like he purposely finds the strongest argument for these ideas, like the whole soy boy movement, the flat Earth stuff, and then he just breaks it down and looks at the facts and compares the information that is being distributed versus the information that is actually out there. So he gives everything a fair shake, but then the comedy that he brings to it is just the icing on the cake. And he's a very easy to watch, very charismatic guy. Those videos are wonderful.
Yep. And have you watched his video essay on why Bloodborne's so amazing yet?
I have not yet. No.
That one's. I mean, it's video games, so the topic's obviously a little bit different in nature, but yeah, highly recommended.
Does Nick really need to though?
I mean, I'm on New Game Plus Plus, so
I mean, Scott, what's the internet for nowadays, if not so that you can go find someone to tell you how smart you are for feeling what you already feel?
Oh yeah, that's fair. Yeah, okay.
Cool. Scott, what have you been up to?
New Hearthstone expansion came out. I've been playing it a bit.
Oh, that's still a game.
Hearthstone's kind of, it's kind of dropped off for me. I don't play it nearly as much. But there's a couple fun cards. One of which is a 2-cost legendary, so single in your deck, and it has a battle cry. So when you play it, it uses the AI in the game to choose the best card for your situation and put it in your hand. And so the AI will analyze like the board state and everything, and if it finds a way to get lethal, like it'll give you the spell. Like it has to be an actual Hearthstone card that will give you lethal. But if you just need like a board wipe or something like that, like I don't know, I find that random stuff sometimes hilarious. I picked up Zelda Breath of the Wild again, and I have now completed all the shrines and all the DLC.
Ooh.
And
You're not a crazy man going after all the Korok seeds, are you?
No, I want to get enough Korok seeds that I like can have a full inventory.
Sure.
But not all of them.
There's like 900 of them, I think.
There are 800.
800. That's still a lot. That's still so many.
Yeah. But I finally killed a Lionel, which was really fun. I didn't know that the Lionel I killed was the highest of all the Lionels. I killed a silver one.
Oh.
Yeah, they have 6,000 hit points.
Yeah.
Jesus.
So it takes a while.
Like, I don't even know the ratio, but just that number just sounds...
It's like a Bloodborne boss or a Souls boss.
Sure. So you do like 200, 300, 400 a hit, 700 on a good hit?
Like 50, 60.
50. Yeah.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It takes
So
a while.
it's
And
not
this guy
like a
charges at
Bloodborne
you...
boss.
This guy charges at you so fast. Like, you have to have timing to, like, 0.05 seconds, like, to block and just... There's ways to... I don't know. And if you shoot him in the face, he gets stunned. But anyways,
There are definitely
for
fun
people who don't play
strategies.
it. Yeah. And...
God, now I want to play Zelda again.
I know, it's so good. And then, real quick update, because I realized I hadn't updated anyone, with the
Marble Olympics?
accountability buddies. Nope, not Marble Olympics. The not being fat goal, I've lost 22 pounds.
Nice.
So,
Nice.
Oh, good job.
yeah. I thought I'd be a little bit farther now, but you know what?
No,
I'm
that's
just like,
really
you know what?
good.
This is going to take a while.
Yeah, that's really
So,
good.
so thanks to everyone in the I forget what we called it, the chat with the health stuff.
Channel number 56.
Oh, I've grown tired of this body.
That's
Right,
right.
it's a mother
That
lyric.
sounds right.
Yeah.
I've grown tired of this Discord.
Nick complains about the number of channels on our Discord,
Dude,
and he's
trying
also
to
like,
find something in the middle of Gen Con, I was like, where the fuck was this channel?
you don't even use Discord.
I did. Well, I tried to.
We could trim the fat.
Were you
a
looking
little
for-
bit here?
We could.
I
There's a
will look at
few.
the channels. Yeah, I'm gonna get rid of a few. Like the
Avengers
sorry, but-
spoilers, Game of Thrones spoilers.
The
yeah, that one can die.
Miyazaki's minions, like I let
The Star Wars
Sekiro
channel?
beat me, so it's fine.
Well, the Star Wars channel we're gonna need in 192 days or whatever it is. 163 days.
Episode 9 hype.
Just make a general
Yeah.
salt channel at this point.
Yeah.
That's all it's
Yeah.
going to be. My prediction.
I think guard dogs and stray cats can. Anyways, not. the
Yeah,
time
we'll
to
talk about
chat,
it later.
But
We'll get
Yeah.
there. We'll get there.
that's it. Yeah, that's what
Cast
I
your
would do.
vote now, listeners. No, I'm kidding.
Justin, how about you? What have you been doing in your spare time of late?
Keyforge.
Yeah.
I do love me some Keyforge. Been playing through, and I guess, Sean, you're part of this, but picked up Borderlands and then Borderlands 2, marching through that in 4-player mode as we get ready for Borderlands 3. That's been kind of a fun throwback.
Yeah, it's real fun. I'll be really glad once we get out of like the first fourth of the game, because I've played that first fourth so much.
Yeah, yeah, but
we're making good progress.
It's real fun because the group we're playing with, we have Sean as a Gunzerker, and then Brian is playing as Krieg, and as a, just even for by Krieg standard, an aggressive Krieg, and then we have 2 sirens to make up for him. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Is Krieg the guy that punches everything?
Yep.
That was the guy I played. Yep.
He was the hardcore melee class.
Yep. And I maxed out that melee tree when Sean and I played.
Did we play 2 or 1?
We played 1.
Okay, so you're thinking of Brick.
Okay. Yeah, I played Brick.
Yep. So Krieg is similar. He's got a lot of things where like he gets more powerful as he hurts himself. And,
nice.
And like can throw bombs when he's about to die, and then in that game when you kill something, if you're about to die, then you get a second win and you're back up. So anyway,
cool.
It's fucking chaos to watch Brian play that character because he gives no shits about living through anything. But yeah,
we've had to go one
fun. Siren
to do full on heal, and that's me, and then the other siren who can do that in a pinch because he's dying so often. It is pure chaos, but it's a whole lot of fun.
Meanwhile, I just stand back and shoot 2 guns at once because that's what I do.
No, it's been doing that, and then I was telling Nick about this at GenCon. I'm getting ready to slowly dig through the old Marvel Overpower card game.
Yeah.
So I'll keep you posted on that. It's gonna be interesting to dig into. I know it's a much different beast than the new LCG, but apples and oranges are still fun to compare. And that's me.
We spent an abysmally short amount of time at the dead CCG table.
I mean, their selection was abysmal this year.
Yeah,
it's
just
because we keep buying all the stuff we want.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where like the source is finite.
That's true. They're not making more Wars cards, sadly.
They're not making more games that they're not making any more of.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
I didn't think about it that way.
Yeah. Hate to be the one to throw that down. Where are we at? Ian.
Okay, so the promised Arkham Horror Final Hour review. This one might be relevant to some of our listeners. So I played it a couple times last night because I was like, I should probably play it before we record so I can talk about it. So I don't have like a fully fleshed out or well-informed view. But from playing it solo, it was fun solo, but like I said before, I think it's better as multiplayer. They're kind of the core of the game is this priority system. So basically, the whole game revolves around, as a character, you have a card that's divided into a top half and bottom half. Usually the top half will let you move around and attack enemies, maybe some other kinds of effects, like you can seal off walkways so monsters can't get through. Usually the bottom half lets you investigate to look at clues and see what's on the other side. There's these clue tokens that have like special symbols on the other side, and it's kind of a process of elimination. You want to find out what symbols were set aside at the beginning, and those are kind of the special symbols for the ritual that you need to stop. But basically, if you're playing, like, say, a 4-player game, you play your card, and then you're going to play a priority number from 1 to, I don't know how high it goes up, like 50, and then everyone does that, and then basically whoever has the 2 lower numbers, their top halves get resolved. Whoever has the higher numbers, their bottom halves get resolved. So I'm interested to see how that plays in multiplayer, because you're playing cooperatively, but there's also this element of like, well, I really want my top half to be resolved, so I'm gonna play the lower priority card, the lower number that is, so it's gonna resolve the top half for me, and kind of playing that little mini game. So I'm curious to see how that plays. Now in solo, it's totally different. Where basically you draw a card, you control 2 investigators, you draw an action card. And then basically you have a set of like 4 priority cards in front of you. So basically as you say you draw one, you say, okay, I'm going to play this on one of the last 2 and resolve the bottom half. Draw the next one. Okay, I'm going to resolve the top half. And so there's definitely some decision making there of like which cards are going to resolve the top, which the bottom. But I think it misses out on some of that element of like interacting with the other players and figuring out how to coordinate with them without being able to fully coordinate with them. So that's why I think that it's fine as a solo game, but I think what I would say is like you should look into it. One, mostly for multiplayer. If you're looking for purely solo, then I think you should only look at it if you really want something different from Arkham Files. Like I mentioned, it's more of a puzzly experience. You're not like drawing random encounters at locations like you would in an Arkham Horror, Eldritch Horror. This is more about like looking at the monsters on the board, where are they going to move, what's going to resolve, and kind of playing whack-a-mole in that way. Yeah, the other thing it has going for it is quick. It was advertised as being quick, and I think I played 2 games, losing both within the space of, I don't know, like 40, 50 minutes or so.
Classic Arkham.
Yeah, so it's definitely super fast. So if you are looking for so on the solo end, if you do want something you can play fast, but it's also so different that it also kind of doesn't feel like an Arkham Files game, other than having the characters you're used to. So that was kind of throwing me off a little bit too.
So there's no bag that you pull stuff out of.
No, yeah, there's no. The only randomness is in the cards you draw, but you're not chicken dice. Like the cards will just say resolve like 3 damage on enemies at your location. So you're not throwing dice. You're not pulling tokens from a bag. It's all card based. It'll say like, you know, the bottom half, if you resolve that, might say like activate all monsters in the purple region or something.
Sure. Interesting.
And I suppose for my part, I think the only thing worth mentioning is Marvel Ultimate Alliance, which you guys are in on too, right?
Mm-hmm. I need to actually play it.
I mean, I know I've played with Scott. Scott, I'm going to assume you've beat the main storyline.
I have, yes.
Okay. I'm stuck in the Dark World because the boss there's an asshole. So I might need to tag you in to help me beat him.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah. But anyways,
I'll bring some high-level characters and just, yeah. Which one's the Dark World? I'm super not into comic books, so when you say Dark World, I'm not sure what you're talking about. The one with all the portals?
Yes. Portals.
The one with Doctor Strange?
Oh, well,
That
I mean,
one?
I was tiptoeing around the spoiler, but yes, I'm having trouble on Doctor Strange because he's an asshole.
Okay. Well, he's been out for a while then. Anyways.
But yes,
okay. Yeah.
The game is really fun. I'm enjoying it. It's a lot more arcadey than I was expecting it to be.
Yeah, it's very button mashy.
Yeah. So, Scott, I don't know did you play... I can't remember who I've talked to at this point and what they said. Have you played the prior Ultimate Alliances at all?
Oh, geez, for maybe an hour total between the 2 of them.
Okay, so not much.
Like, I was familiar with familiar with them. But
Okay. I think Ultimate Alliance 1 is still my favorite. For some reason, the combat system just works better for me. There's a level of granularity to the powers and the leveling up that has kind of gotten lost where, you know, you have more than 4 powers, and part of building your character out is figuring out what combination of powers you want to level up and use and, you know, yada yada. Game's still fun. It's lacking a little bit of the depth that I would normally like in that sort of dungeon crawler. But I am still in my first playthrough. I'll be interested to see if it gets more interesting on higher difficulties, or if I start diving into like the challenge modes.
The challenge modes offer a little bit.
Okay.
I kind of enjoy them.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I like those more than the actual story mode. The story mode was fun, and it's just going to be it's a super easy game to sit down and just play, right? Like you just jump in and then you mash the Y button, and then stuff goes away, and yeah. And
I mean, to be fair, all of the like from X-Men Legends up through Ultimate Alliance, they've all been like that. So that's fair.
Yep.
I don't know, if you're into that type of game, it's great for that. Like and that's what I use it for. Like when I don't want to beat shrines or something like that in Zelda, I'm like, I'm just gonna go bash things, and then I go play Marvel. So
Yeah, the odd thing about it, I think, is the way the roster levels up, because you get characters as you go through the storyline, and like they'll just come in at way higher levels, and experience is earned individually. So if you want to, say, level up the big swath of heroes that you get at the beginning of the game when it first opens up to play in the later game, that actually takes a decent amount of commitment. So And you know, there are like XP stones, so they're like consumables you can use to just spawn XP, but I don't know. Still not sure how I feel about it. It feels a little
So weird.
It feels a little lopsided sometimes.
It's so weird that they abandoned the global leveling up like what they did in X-Men Legends 2, and I honestly don't remember Ultimate Alliance very well. I remember Ultimate Alliance 2, but
Both 1 and 2 had like a base level of common experience. Like, you got more if you were actually playing a character in your party, but there was definitely a base level that just went to your entire roster. So, I don't know.
weird choice.
It is. It's an odd choice.
I've had my copy since release day. I need to finally play it. So maybe tonight after we record, I'll finally play.
There you go. Excellent. But anyway, check it out. If anyone else is playing it, just tag me an off topic on the Discord and we'll swap friend codes.
yeah, same here.
Yeah. All right, excellent. Well, that is going to wrap up this episode. So as I said, thanks to all of you guys who were involved in Gen Con. It was a really good time this year. Thank you, Justin, for coming and recording with us.
Yeah, it was fun. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We'll have to get you back on here again and actually talk maybe a little bit more about Arkham at some point.
Yeah, and then I can remind
that's the thing we
people
do.
that if they were at Gen Con or have been playing Arkham, to tag you guys on social media.
Would you do that?
Yeah.
I suppose you just did.
Could you do it again, though, officially? No, I'm just kidding.
No. So yeah, tag us on social media. We'd love to see the pictures, just like from a personal standpoint. I'm like, yeah, I just would love to see other people's Gen Con pictures. But yes, then from a networking standpoint, that's also great. So anyway, thanks everyone for joining us for episode 65 of Mythos Busters. We will catch you guys for 66. Bye.
Bye.
All right, doing it for real this time now. Fucking.
I'm sorry. I honestly did.
You're such a cack sometimes.
It's the cheese powder.
You got some cheese
the
powder.
cheese.
I don't believe you.
I'm muting.
I could feel that in my throat.